Guys, we got some Browns coming up next after I remind you about Epicor. Today's episode is brought to you by them, and every team knows the value of hard work, taking pride in what you build, and in practicing every detail to get the best results. But no one player, no matter how amazing, can do it all alone. Working together makes the win easier. At Epicor, the all-stars are the hardworking manufacturers and distributors who create and deliver the things we all need, from aerospace to electrical to medical devices. You can see your whole supply chain, manage your logistics easier, and respond to pricing change easier. Because the clock doesn't tick down and you need the most out of every hardworking minute, Easier doesn't cut corners, Easier finds the lane. Discover your success at www.easierwithepicor.com. That's www.easierwithepicor.com.
All right, let's switch it up. We'll get to our next topic here, and that is are we doing the quarterbacks here?
No, we're doing Mason Graham here.
Oh, Mason Graham. Okay, so ESPN ranked their top 10 defensive tackles in the NFL. No Browns, of course, on the list. No surprise there. But Mike, why don't you set this up? Because this got you going with some stuff here.
Yeah, so ESPN's doing its annual summer series of top 10 position groups. Today they did defensive ends. We'll talk about that tomorrow. Yesterday was defensive tackles. And Mason Graham's the guy who was selected 5th overall. He was the centerpiece of what the Browns got back in the immediacy of that trade with Jacksonville that allowed Jacksonville to get Travis Hunter. They also got that first-round pick, which may be the centerpiece down the road. But for right now, it's Mason Graham. And we said the other day, for a top 5 pick, we haven't spent a ton of time talking about Mason Graham, and maybe a little bit of a disservice. So I went through and looked at that top 10 defensive tackle list from ESPN and tried to figure out the backgrounds for the majority of those top 10 guys to see if we could find a common trend and see if that kind of is going to set the bar of expectations for Mason Graham, not just necessarily in his rookie season, but over his entire career with, we hope, the Cleveland Browns. So, and if you want to pull up the top 10 list,
go ahead, Anthony.
We'll run through the top 10 and look at where a lot of these guys were drafted and the backgrounds of these. But the top 10 defensive tackles voted on by NFL executives, personnel, scouts. These are all, it's an ESPN survey of NFL people. Went like this. Dexter Lawrence of the Giants, number 1. Chris Jones, number 2. Chris Jones was number 1 last year. He swapped spots with Dexter Lawrence. You had Jalen Carter at 3. Jeffrey Simmons at number 4. Quinnen Williams at number 5. Going 6 through 10 here. You had Leonard Williams, Nnamdi Madubuike of the Baltimore Ravens, DeForest Buckner, Vita Vea, and Cam Hayward. So that's your top 10. So I dug a little deeper and looked at some of the draft positions and some of the backgrounds here of those top 10. And of the top 10 defensive tackles, 8 of them were first-round picks, guys. Chris Jones was a second-round pick. Madubuike was a third-round pick. Of those 8 first-round picks, 7 were top 20, 4 were top 10, and Quinnen Williams was the lone defensive tackle taken in the top 5 of the 4 that were taken in the top 10. So to me, before I open this up to you guys to give your 2 cents, there just aren't that many guys built at that size with that coordination and that athleticism. And when you get that combination in a prospect, they oftentimes go quite high because they're such a rare breed. And because of that combination of size, skill, athleticism, coordination, and talent, typically they have translated. Not all. There have been first-round defensive tackles that have absolutely missed. There's been quite a few in Cleveland. But Dustin, 8 of those 10 were first-round picks. 4 of them were top 10 picks. And to me, that says Mason Graham better turn out to be a pretty damn good player.
Yeah, I think that the expectations are there for him to become like a top 10 player at the position. I don't think there's any reason why he can't become that good of a player. I mean, a very talented guy. He played a lot of college football at Michigan. You know, a 2-time All-American. Just doesn't happen very often. And, you know, he plays a position that's not that sexy. And so the numbers don't really jump out at you a ton. And, like, you don't see a ton of sacks from defensive tackles for the most part. I mean, obviously, like Hendrickson, is he considered?
No, he's an end.
He's an end. Yeah, I mean,
but Chris Jones is the number 1 guy.
Yeah, but a lot of those guys that are on that top 10 list get sacks.
No, you do, but you don't have 15.
No, sure.
Right. So it'll be interesting to see how we judge this guy. Does he open things up for Myles Garrett? Does he make things easier for Schwartz defensively to game plan for? I think it will. The other thing about it is no one's really going to be watching him. You know, like nobody's going to be up this guy's, oh my God, every single snap this guy is going to be like critiqued. It's not going to be like that. He's not playing quarterback.
Right.
He's playing a position that when he makes a big play, we're going to know about it. We're going to talk about it. If he doesn't make a great play, it's probably not going to get noticed.
Yeah, I mean, the expectation is for him to be an All-Pro.
Yeah, of course.
And,
of course.
You know, I mean, if you drafted in the top 5, the goal is All-Pro at the very least.
The previous 4 defensive tackles
Yeah.
in the last 20 years that were drafted top 5 before Mason Graham
Yeah.
have all made at least one All-Pro in their career. At
Right.
least one. More
Right,
than
right.
3 of the 4 have made multiple.
Right, you should. Right, that should be the goal, to be a multiple-time All-Pro. Otherwise, it wasn't a good pick. This is not just the first round. This is the top 5 of the draft. And they traded down, you know, and could have taken somebody else. But you're right. I mean, it's not like he's gonna be the talk of the town one way or the other, because he's not going to get a lot of sacks, certainly not as a rookie, and there's a lot of plays where a defensive tackle can have a good rep and nothing happens statistically.
They just absorb 2 blocks to allow Myles to go one-on-one, or they clog a hole and force the running back to bounce into another hole into the arms of a tackler.
And we don't talk about those type of things when we're having a casual conversation about football. It's something that after a number of years, you just see the guy pop up on the Pro Bowl and the All-Pro every list, and then you're like, oh, I guess this guy's a good defensive tackle. I didn't know, especially if it's a guy that is not on a team that you watch at all. So you probably, there's probably really good defensive tackles that most fans don't even know their names.
And pull up the list again.
Yeah.
Because I want to go through. I think it's a good point you make, Bull. But when you look at the list in particular, Dexter Lawrence, if you watch a Giants game, go back to when they played the Browns this year.
Yeah.
He's in the backfield all the time.
Yeah.
Chris Jones, in the backfield all the time. He's a guy that you do see.
No, not that one.
Not that one, the top 10
The
defensive
last
tackles
list
this year. Number 3 was, who was 3 on the list?
I don't
But
know.
then you have guys like Vita Vea, who was at number 9.
Here we go. Dexter Lawrence, Chris Jones, Jalen Carter, Jeffrey Simmons. These guys are all big-time impact players.
And the next one,
But that second group, some of those guys.
Leonard Williams, more of a run-stuffing defensive tackle. Vita Vea
same thing.
doesn't get a ton of sacks, but he's an
right.
incredibly valuable player. Matabike had that one season with a bunch of sacks.
Yeah.
DeForest Buckner kind of does both, and Cam Hayward. I mean, he's putting up
Cam
good
Hayward
numbers.
doesn't put up huge sack numbers, but
his presence
we
is
know
felt.
as Browns fans
Yes.
that he's a great player, maybe a Hall of Famer. And so, I mean, it's probably, along with the offensive line, the least sexy position in all of football. It's a position that you knock. If a guy's not on your team, there's a good chance you might not ever heard of him. And so, there's some guys, if you would have told me, I don't know, bring up the 6 through 10 again if you could, Anthony.
By the way, the 2 guys that fell out of the list this
Yeah.
year were Derek Brown, who was hurt all of last
Yeah.
season, and Christian Wilkins, who signed with the Raiders.
Yeah, if you would have mentioned Christian Wilkins or Matabike to me, I'd be like, I'm not even. I wouldn't have known for sure they were top 10 level defensive tackles.
Agreed.
Right? No. I mean, how would you? Most people don't know that. So I would have thought Cam Hayward was higher on the list. I mean, this is just one opinion here, but
It was a survey.
oh, based on who did this?
So they
the players
asked,
voted?
No, they asked 30 NFL coaches, executives, scouts,
okay.
and they composite.
Okay. Yeah. So
Hayward's old though. I mean, he was
Yeah,
higher
I
on the
hear
list.
you.
He's slowly working his way down.
Right,
But
right,
still
right.
a very good player.
So obviously it's a credible list because it's people
Yeah.
that know the
Yep.
game. So, yeah, I mean, I do think it's interesting, and it's a thing where Mason Graham, I feel like it's one of those positions like offensive line that unless you make unless it's the rare case where you make a big sack impact, which is very rare for defensive tackles, that you really, even if you're good, you probably don't get much recognition until at least 3, 4, 5 years into your career. Because it's we're used to giving the nod to these other guys. Well, they're still really good at this position. And then all of a sudden you're like, this guy, nobody can run on the Browns all of a sudden. Why is that? Oh, it's Mason Graham,
I feel like it's a position if you don't have guys there, though. You may not notice them when they make good plays that are subtle.
Yeah.
But if they are terrible, like in 2022, when we had G. Bush sitting in the middle chair screaming,
Yeah.
Taven Bryan!
Right, no,
Oh,
sure.
God.
And if they don't exist, then it's completely evident to even the most unknowledgeable football fan.
That's only for your team.
No. I know, but I'm saying
but look
just
at-
the position in general. If
Yes.
you aren't talented at that position, you get run on time after time to where
sure.
it's like, oh my God. But when they are competent and even hopefully better than just competent,
Yeah.
you don't see, to your point, they don't make the splash plays
Yeah.
every drive. They just don't get run on to where you're constantly in 2nd and 2s.
But also, if you have like one defensive tackle who's solid, like he's just a good player, nothing special, whatever,
Dalvin
and the
Tomlinson.
other guy sucks, well, you might get run on, and then everybody think, well, both those guys suck. But no, this other
True.
guy is solid.
Yeah.
But the guy he's working with, he stinks, so it makes him look bad. Like, can you name the Bengals defensive tackles?
No.
DJ Reader.
And that was 2 years ago. He used to be. He left, and they sucked.
Sheldon Rankins.
They didn't pick him up last year, but he was hurt a lot of the year. Good job out of you. And that's it, right? B.J. Hill used to be on the Giants.
B.J. Hill, yeah.
Right?
I would've got
They
that
had
eventually.
DJ Reader is a perfect example of a guy. He never had a lot of sacks.
No.
But everybody knew. And look what happened. The Bengals went from their run defense being, decent to last year where they were like all-time bad.
All-time bad, yeah.
What'd they lose? They lost a couple guys, but Reader was the biggest loss on that defensive line.
Did you ever play with a freak defensive tackle? Like just a freak athlete at that DT position?
I gotta think, like freak athlete.
Or not even necessarily from a freak athlete standpoint, but a guy that when he was in versus when he was out, you knew the entire play was different.
I mean, Kyle Williams in Buffalo was that way. I mean, he was an awesome player. I'm trying to think if there's anybody else.
Or even in college.
Was Pat Williams there when you were in Buffalo too? Is it the Williams brothers?
Pat Williams was in Buffalo. He was end of his career.
End of his career, though, yeah.
Dude, he had the biggest belly I've ever seen in my life.
I used to love playing with him in Madden.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, it's awesome.
It's like him and Vince Wilfork, big old bellies,
Yep.
dude.
Yeah.
In college, I mean, great players, yeah. I'm just trying to think if there's anybody that was like...
Like a game changer is the better way to put it.
You guys put me on the spot.
Sorry.
Yeah.
Well,
Let me think about that.
Yeah.
One other thing on Mason
Yeah.
Graham, we can move on. If there was any situation for a rookie defensive tackle to come into that I think he could have early success, it's with Jim Schwartz as his defensive coordinator, who, if you look at that top 10 list, has his fingerprints all over it. And two, playing alongside Myles Garrett has to help. Like, I know it hasn't helped some of the lesser talented guys they've had at that position in the past, but it has to make your job as a defensive tackle so much easier when you know on the outside, I got a guy that's either taking up the second pass blocker, or if they're going to try and block him one-on-one, then all I got to do is make sure my guy doesn't shift over and try and help.
Well,
It
no,
has to help.
They won't be blocking him one-on-one. He
I
will
hope
be
not.
taking a second offensive line.
That's what I'm saying.
So it
In
makes
the
my
rare
job
situation,
easier.
yeah.
And it'll be interesting to see if the Browns make a point, and that shows how bad a lot of their defensive tackles were, that they couldn't take advantage of the fact that Myles Garrett was getting double-teamed all the time.
Every time.
I mean, all the time.
Oh, yeah.
But it'll be interesting to see if they purposely line up Mason Graham next to Myles Garrett up front, as opposed to being on the other side of the other defensive tackle. And plus, it'll be interesting this year. Remember, 2 years ago when the Browns really played well defensively, they were moving Myles Garrett around the line a lot more often.
Yeah.
We would see him line up as like a D tackle occasionally, or at least in that slot on the field. And we didn't really see that much last year.
Yeah, I mean, he'd shade the center at times. I mean,
Right.
like he
Played
was
basketball on
doing
him.
the killer
Yeah.
crossover. Remember that play? I mean,
Yep.
I think if you put him in the same spot every snap, it's like, why? You move this guy around.
Yeah.
Like, just let him be a unicorn for you.
Do you
I
remember
don't
when they
understand
played
why they didn't do that last
when they
year.
played Tennessee that season 2 years ago?
Yeah.
And they started him on the left side, and they motioned him to the right side, and then Tennessee motioned the extra blocker to that side. Then Myles went back to the left, and they ended up calling a timeout.
I don't think I
They
remember.
just they literally tried to shadow where
Yeah,
Myles
right,
went,
right.
and Myles just kept. You motion? Well, you can't stop mid motion, so
Right.
I'm going to go back this
I
way.
mean,
And
think
force them to
about
call a
that.
timeout.
Are you doing that for any other defensive end in football?
No.
No, I don't think so. To have an extra blocker shadowing him across
You remember
the
that
field.
play, right?
Of course.
Yeah.
Yeah. That was, and they were completely flummoxed.
They called a timeout.
Yeah. That's bizarre.